The Institute of World Affairs at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee presents International Focus, a weekly discussion of the people and events behind today's global headlines. Support provided by Milwaukee Public Television and the UWM Center for International Education. Now here's your host, Doug Savage.
Welcome to International Focus. Our topic today, building green in Taiwan. To quote Kermit the Frog, it's not that easy being green. That said, there's a growing movement among today's architects and engineers to design and build structures that reduce the overall impact of the built environment on human health and the natural environment. While these issues are relevant worldwide, they become particularly important in places with high population density and limited available land. One example is Taiwan, where building green is becoming big business. Taiwan's Ministry of Economic Affairs has predicted that the total industry value of green building on the island will reach $2 billion per year by 2015. To help us explore art and economics of green construction in Taiwan and around the world, we're joined by Arthur Huang, a Taiwanese architect who trained at Cornell and Harvard, whose work focuses on sustainable design. He's the founder and managing director of MiniWiz, a Taipei-based company dedicated to developing consumer energy solutions. The polybrick, a construction material he invented from recycled plastic bottles, was the product winner of the 2010 Earth Awards. Also joining us, Gregory Thomson, assistant professor and co-director of the Institute for Ecological Design in UW-Milwaukee's School of Architecture and Urban Planning. He's a past winner of the U.S. Green Building Council's Emerging Green Builders International Design Competition. And Perry Shen, Director General of the Taiwan Economic and Cultural Office in Chicago. Gentlemen, welcome to International Focus. Well, I'd like to begin our discussion with sort of the parameters of what we mean by green building. Greg, maybe you could help us.
Sure. I think that if you look at issues of sustainability or environmental design or ecology, you can probably categorize those into three basic areas. One would be efficiency, which is, for example, having a piece of technology, a refrigerator, a computer that operates more efficiently than a previous version or a different model. There would be green building, which might be somewhere in the middle, which tries to minimize the negative impact on the environment by certain strategies, whether they are passive ones for cooling or ventilation or heating or using efficient technologies in the building. And then that upper category would have to be sustainability, which has an international definition of doing no harm to future generations. So what that means is trying to make sure that what we do today doesn't reduce the ability of future generations to do what they need to do in the future.
And Arthur, are there now standards internationally for what qualifies as green or sustainable?
No, there are plenty of standards out there. I think for us, what we are trying to focus on, particularly in Taiwan, is because the typical standards designed for countries with a lot of resources. But Taiwan doesn't have resources. We import almost 99% of everything, energy all the way to materials. So that type of green design or certification, actually for us, it actually doesn't really make a lot of sense. So what we have tried to do is basically looking at what's really needed, which is called embedded carbon footprint. So what we're looking at is something that is going to be the standard in Europe called ISO 14001. This is a new standard called embedded carbon footprint for both products, including automobiles, all the way to building industries. Yes.
So what do we mean by an embedded carbon footprint?
Okay, so typically, if you make this cup, okay, or you make a car, 90% of energy actually required to make this cup actually comes from the making part of it. The material get from crude oil or get from raw material all the way to actually the product. the operation cost is normally what we are worried about. That's mostly what the green standards are.
So how much does it cost for me to keep my refrigerator plugged in?
Yes, exactly. The operation cost. That's normally about 10%. So it's normally 9 to 1. So what in Taiwan, because the resource is so scarce, it's almost become a necessity. Okay, almost become a necessity for us to really look at what are the material that's coming in and how are we going to efficiently use that material, because that's where all the cost is coming from and all the energy usage is coming from.
And is there a particular aspect of all of this that impacts Taiwan based on the political situation?
Oh, yes. As you know, Taiwan has been doing its best to integrate the international environmental protection conventions and its implementation protocols into its domestic laws to preserve environmental and to reduce the industrial and agricultural waste, and to reduce the emission of carbon footprints. But we think environmental protection is a joint efforts by all the people around the world. But unfortunately, due to the political pressures from Beijing, Taiwan to participate to most of international environmental protection convention were blocked. We think it's very unfortunate. As I mentioned, it should be a universal efforts. Taiwan had done its efforts domestically. We just hope we could be given an opportunity to do it together with all other countries and people around the world.
Well, and you mentioned Taiwan's resource situation as a driver of a lot of the green building practices. Who else around the world is, in your opinion, at the forefront of these kinds of things?
I think in general, manufacturing technology, the professor sitting next to me, who's also very versed in all the manufacturing technology, the green building techniques, we're all very familiar with, especially in the West. For example, United States, Europe, they're definitely all very keen on building green. Okay, I don't think building green is an issue. Now it's a universal, like Director General was mentioned, it's a universal value. Right now it's how. Okay, I think this is what we are looking for. Everyone's finding their own answer, and Taiwan is trying to find their own solutions to how to build green.
And is this largely an urban phenomenon? I mean, how does the sort of rural versus urban applications play out?
I think those are some really interesting contrasts that at least in the environmental movement in the United States, I think a lot of people were applying them in remote locations because they wanted to be away from the city, off the grid, kind of on their own. But the reality is that most people in the world live in cities. And that's where we can make the biggest impact in the smallest sort of area. But also is the most difficult because of the number of people and the political conditions and trying to develop consensus and overlaying all those different kind of socio-economic political issues makes it more complex.
Well, Arthur, you were part of a very high-profile project recently, designing a pavilion for the International Flora Show in Taiwan. I've got some images here. I wonder if you could just sort of walk us through these.
Okay, this is a project that's made from 100% trash. This is what we like to call 100% made from 100% trash. This is what we claim, the solution to build green buildings. We talk about carbon footprints, carbon cost to make the building. Why not we just use the carbon we already throw away? Okay, so we're using trash. We actually collected 1.5 million plastic bottles from Taipei citizens. And we use the post-consumer packaging for water, and we turn that into a self-interlocking building blocks.
So what are we looking at here?
So this is the interior of an exhibition space. Is actually normally used as an auditorium or a fashion show pavilion. So you can see there's a huge 130-meter ramp that wrap around the building, and then this is the interior. So you see natural lighting from the material. It's translucent, so allow beautiful natural daylight to come in and insulate it. It has a 30 cm insulation in between.
Okay, let's look at another image.
And this is what happened at night. That's when the LED lamp that's integrated with the what we call the recycled brick, then it's completely lighted up, and it become a jam at night for people to appreciate and the sexiness of the light.
Right. And here's a shot. We can actually see the outline of the structure.
Okay. The outline of a structure is designed as an arc. That's why the name of the building is called Far Eastern Eco Arc. Far Eastern is a company that's very big in Taiwan, and that's especially powerful in terms of the petroleum and recycling industries. So what we're trying to do is not just a biblical arc. It's actually literally having this shape to wedge in the air to cool the building. So it's actually lifted so the air can be efficiently divert into the building to cool the building without air conditioning.
And there's an exterior wall.
Yeah, that's the exterior wall. As you can see, the pattern actually comes from a structural pattern, like a rivets that interlock all this brick together to create a very strong pre-stressed structure.
Well, and I think we've got an image of those bricks.
Yes, so each of one of these bricks are actually like a jigsaw puzzle, and they are locked together three-dimensionally.
So these are the materials that were created from your $1.5 million or 1.5 million bottles reclaimed.
Yes, exactly. And then they still maintain a semi-bottle shape. It's because we look into why bottles are so efficient in buildings. Back in the 60s, there are people proposing a bottle building already. Okay, but bottles are actually good because it's a good insulator. It creates a sealed air pockets. So I think that's why we still maintain some of the manufacturing technique and also the way how it can be structured.
And what was the impetus behind building this? Is this a demonstration project? Or is there a philosophical component to it, if you will?
There's definitely a philosophical component. If you touch everything that's on this desk, or for any viewers at home, just touch anything or look at anything that you're in your space. Everything that you have right now is made from virgin material. Okay, we are talking about global warming. We're talking about saving energies, reduce toxicities. If you think about it, we are constantly taking out materials, energy sources from the earth, and we are making things using virgin material. The whole idea is let's try to do all that using trash material. Means just imagine we are a human body. We constantly only print out new blood. We only make new blood. We don't actually recycle the blood. We don't clean the blood. So the idea is, okay, let's have a recycle system that allows us to buy what we throw away. And of course, something has to be attractive for people to buy it. Something has to be functional for people to buy it. Something has to be high performance for people to be willing to pay even a premium for it. So that's what this whole idea, the demonstration and the technology that we invented is to move this sustainable movement into a more practical phase.
Well, and we'll talk with a bit more about the economics of green construction when we come back. Right now we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more International Focus.
The Institute of World Affairs presents our community with a range of public programs relating to global issues, U.S. foreign policy, and the world economy. For more information about the Institute of World Affairs, call 414-229-3220 or visit our website at www.iwa.uwm.edu.
Welcome back to International Focus. We're talking about green building in Taiwan and elsewhere. Well, you know, for a long time, the real iconic symbol of technological prowess in society was having the biggest something, the tallest building. And in fact, Taipei did have the tallest building until very recently in Taipei 101. Is green construction and sort of sustainability becoming the new big? Is there now a cachet associated with having the most efficient building?
I think there certainly is, and that's, at least in the United States, the way the U.S. Green Building Council has established their protocols for certification. They're looking at that as a real marketing approach to it, a kind of commerce and market-driven approach to building, and saying that, you know, you're going to get awards for using the least amount of energy, using the least amount of materials, having the healthiest building, and they're using that as a way of upgrading office space. For example, the city of Chicago has done a really wonderful job, I think, of taking lower grade rental space, turning it into green buildings, and then being able to rent that for much higher rates than they could have before. So it's gone from a Class B or C up to Class A, and a large part because it's been turned into something that has a rating attached to it, that has verifiable energy use amounts that people can understand and quantify.
And what about that retrofitting? Is that something that's going on in many places? I mean, we think of green construction as, you know, sort of the new approach to construction. What about this idea of retrofitting, like the Empire State Building or Taipei 101, for example?
No, in fact, Taiwan just got the LEED Platinum for Taipei 101. That was a big news because it was the tallest building and the biggest volume per square, actually got a LEED Platinum certification. I mean, it's a retrofitting project. It's not building from scratch, but it's actually very difficult to actually have an operating 10,000 people building. You have to, all the toilet needs to be changed, all the water, electricity system has to be remonitored, rearranged, to become more efficient, and that is a huge task.
Well, and that gets down to economics. I mean, is there a rule of thumb of something in excess of what percent premium on green construction versus non-green? And how do you incentivize people to make the right choice?
Those are all, I think, really important questions and really difficult ones to get answers to, partly because buildings are just complex things, right? They're not just a static object like a coffee cup. There are 10,000 people in them, and suddenly that makes a big difference. But what we do know from the research in the last 10 years is that green building in this country at sort of minimum levels is no more expensive than to build a regular building. When you get a little bit higher in that construction in terms of the application of technologies, you can actually see a little bit of cost increase, maybe 1 or 2%, but again, sort of minimal. What Arthur was talking about, the platinum level, in this case, the highest level of certification you can receive from the U.S. Green Building Council, you actually see a reduction in cost. Because as you've taken technologies and improved performance, the minimization of energy use that you allowed to happen allows you to then take money that would have been spent on building systems and recycle that and put it back into more high performance materials, more insulation, better windows, better systems. And obviously you can't work it all out that way. You can't achieve zero energy by just adding more technology, but you can push it down.
But, you know, is that the perception among the typical client? I mean, I think many people still think, well, we'd like to go green, but who can afford that, right?
Okay. Everyone wants to go green. I think ideologically, it's not everybody knows right. It's a moral thing to do. So it comes down to economics. So what Taiwan is very good at, as you can imagine, Taiwan is a place where technology innovation happens. Most of computer, laptop, iPhones, a lot of these technologies are made there. A lot of very high-tech, even engine components from our airplanes are all made in Taiwan. So it's about, with such a small nation, it's such a strain of resources, it's all about cost. So the cost become one of the most crucial factor. In order for us to build anything in Taiwan, our client, one of our has to be very enduring. Okay, they have to be very courageous. First of all, the government also has to be quite enduring because they have to approve the building process. the building construction. The third, obviously, the economic has to work. The economic has to be cheaper. So this is kind of the new wave of innovation, is actually making things cheaper, yet greener and more efficient.
Well, and is there a government role to provide incentive? I mean, try to push people in that direction?
Yes, that definitely. As you mentioned, green building is a very newly emerging and prosperous industry in Taiwan, and that make a very good sense economically for the Taiwanese government to encourage its people, its private sectors to build buildings green, to save energies and reduce the emission of carbons. So we definitely provide economic incentives and technical assistance to the private sectors who are with this business.
And Greg, what about in this country? What might I expect if I decide to make my project green?
Sure. Well, as we know, we're a market-driven economy, and so from our perspective here in the U.S., that if it doesn't work economically, it probably won't make a big impact. There are, as Arthur mentioned, companies that want to take risks, that want to make investments in those technologies and make a statement about how green they are. There is a little bit of work on the horizon that will start to kind of push some things down from the top level in terms of building codes. But again, the largest certification system in the U.S., the U.S. Green Building Council, and the LEED system, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, is private sector, and it's an optional piece. There are some municipalities, some cities that are starting to require it. Many universities and college campuses are making sure their buildings are done through that LEED system. Places like the GSA, the General Services Administration, the Armed Forces are making all of their buildings through that system. So there are a lot of players in the marketplace who are doing it, which helps everyone else. It helps to reduce the cost, helps increase understanding, and sort of educate architects, engineers, and clients about how those things work.
Well, and two of you are actively involved in training the next generation. How does all of this fit into the curriculum for people being trained into the profession?
I think it can happen at many different levels. It doesn't necessarily have to be just architects. In fact, we're going to be offering a class here at UWM, which is intended to be for many people outside of architecture, so that we can help them understand how their physical environment works. In my classes, I have lecture courses and design studios, and I teach students about the value of doing good research, understanding numbers and performance, and understanding how those things can influence design. I think a set of numbers can't make a beautiful building, and a beautiful building can't, without numbers, perform well. And so I think that's, from my end, how I would look at it.
From my end, I think what he was just mentioning about beautiful, I think we try to create beautiful products. Now, by creating beautiful products, making from trash, I think in a way that will draw attentions to the building itself. I think we are very consumer-driven as a society, and also overall as a consumption cultures, we would like to buy things that we think is valuable. So if we can create products, okay, both tiny consumer products or big consumer products like buildings, and we can actually educate people that green buildings are not just performance driven. It actually can be quite beautiful, and that is the initial draw that's going to sell green education.
And so looking down the road, I mean, how long before this becomes just an accepted practice and not sort of a novelty?
I think we're actually well on the way right now. That there are a bunch of things going on across the country and across the world that are starting to establish it as sort of a common practice, having international protocols, having places like the U.S. Green Building Council, which has brother and sister organizations around the world, other green building councils, having things like the ISO standards that start to develop a universal language of how we approach energy issues, how we approach materials issues. I think that will help and has already helped considerably.
And in Taiwan?
Taiwan definitely has its own standard. I think we definitely need to be able to participate, I think, in the global forum more often. Taiwan currently is still slightly secluded in terms of international debate in the green building process or even in the low carbon process, because Taiwan is actually not a member of a international forum where we can actually be able to trade or be part of a what we call standard making process. Okay, so I think we are a little bit off the chute. But I think in general that might be an interesting opportunity for us to actually develop a new set of logics that also can coincide with the current standard.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll look forward to life in a greener built environment in the years ahead. Thank you for joining us on International Focus, and to our viewers, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
For information about the Institute of World Affairs and its many programs, or to become a member of the Institute, call 414-229-3220 or visit us at our website,